Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Utah Film Pod. My name is Josh Terry. I'm here with Dani Hatch. And Dani, how are you doing? Because I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, no, this is a little bit your fault for sure.
A little bit. No more than
survived.
1/3. No more than 1/3 my fault, right? Because there were 3 total people involved. Although you could kind of split it evenly between me and Mark.
No, you guys were, oh my goodness. Like, I have a picture of the editing screen from the last episode, and just all the, like, very little music inserts. There's just, like, a million of them in this one line. And, you know, bless your guys' hearts, you had to name just every band in existence from every movie ever. But it was super fun, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really happy with the final product. So, you know, it was a labor of love and a bit of grief, I think. But
just a little. Well, you know,
just a little.
It's never worth it if there isn't at least a little bit of grief, right?
Yeah, and some tears and late nights and everything. But
it
all turned out pretty okay. So I really hope everyone checks that one out, even if you have to consume
That's a
it
rousing endorsement. It's pretty okay. How are you doing? I'm pretty okay. I'm here. I'm still here for now.
I'm alive.
I think. Okay. Well, for anybody who has not listened to our soundtrack epic episode, just if only to keep Dani's spirits up and her willingness to continue editing and working on behalf of the Utah Film Pod, give it a listen or two. Good music, good talk, and good times. But
that's good.
Maybe with that in mind, we'll make this episode a little more streamlined, a little more focused. I think we just want to make sure to cover a couple movies that are, well, one that's about to come out, one that came out that I think we still need to kind of vent on a little bit, and I think we could probably skip over the news and just kind of get right to it, so that you know, because we're thinking of you, the audience, and I'm thinking of Dani as the producer and the co-host.
It's probably mostly me. All those like texts of like crying emojis and everything. Do we have to do this?
Well, you know, I mean, the more considerate I can be, the less likely you're going to say, Josh, could you start doing some of this editing and some of this other production work? So I'm motivated. Yeah,
no, that's fair. It all comes back to your best interest, right? But you said
it's all selfish. It's all selfish. No, So, but we do. I mean, genuinely, there are a couple of very interesting movies to talk about today. We'll start. I think with the one that's about to come out, which is the most newsworthy event. We got Lightyear, the newest and most outer spacey Pixar outing. Now, because this is not. I want to say I read somewhere that the director suggested this was like the first sci-fi Pixar, but WALL-E was kind of sci-fi.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, no, that's totally sci-fi.
So I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But like I was just kind of been reading up a little bit on some stuff before today's broadcast or before today's recording. I know that this is kind of, to a degree, this is new territory. Now, I'll start off with the thing that I really do kind of like about this movie. The most, because there are actually a few different things I like, and there's some things I'm not really that crazy about, and so this is going to be kind of a multifaceted review. So the concept of Lightyear is one of the things that I like the most. It's the idea that the Lightyear movie is the movie that Andy from Toy Story saw back in the 1990s that got him excited and introduced him to the character of Buzz Lightyear. And so it's a movie about Buzz Lightyear that is taking place within the Toy Story universe. Like Lightyear is a movie that came out in the universe of Toy Story. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of cool. I thought that was kind of fun.
Is it structured like it? Like, does it seem like a cartoon that came out in the 90s?
No.
Okay.
And that which is one of the weird things, because although I'm willing to forgive it, because one of the best things about this movie, in fact, I think the thing that I would say that I liked the most about this movie is the animation. There are a couple of moments, and we watched it on IMAX, and so I think it's like an IMAX movie. There were some really cool sequences like traveling through space and stuff that just really looks fantastic. And obviously that capacity was not there in the 1990s. And so you kind of have to say, okay, well, this is the movie that Andy was watching back then, but obviously it wouldn't look like this because this is a animated movie produced in 2022, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I'm willing to set that aside. So with that context, the movie itself follows, it's essentially the Buzz Lightyear origin story. And he's part of this, kind of outer space exploratory group. You're a bigger Toy Story fan than I am. Remind me what Buzz is like. He's not a space commando. He's what?
I think you mean Space Ranger.
Space Ranger. There we are.
I think that's one of the jokes that are featured in Toy Story. Yeah.
Okay. So he's already kind of part of this group. He's in this big ship that I believe, I have to think this is intentional because it looks just like the ship in E.T. And they crash land on a planet. And in order to, and then they damage basically their hyperdrive, right? So they're kind of marooned on this planet. And so the main focus of the plot is Buzz testing out different smaller ships to recover some kind of like transwarp light speed drive thing that will enable him to save all of his fellow, people. Now, the twist is that every time he goes on one of these test journeys, it's like instantaneous for him, but then years pass back on the planet. And so when he's doing this like a couple dozen times, all the people back on the planet have to kind of dig in and build society and just kind of make the best of the fact that this is where they're going to be for the indefinite future. Mm-hmm. And then other stuff happens. That's probably good enough to set it up. So that's the main idea. And like I say, the animation's cool. The concept is cool. There are some interesting themes that I would like individually if they didn't seem to come in conflict with each other. Mm. And I honestly, so I saw this with a couple of my older nieces, and they seem to like it just fine. I don't know if this would be over the head of a younger child, though, because it starts getting into kind of the concept of, time being relative and all, this idea that, Buzz is gone for 30 seconds and 4 years pass back on the planet. That starts to kind of lead to some stuff later on that I'm watching just thinking, well, I'm following this okay. And I think a lot of, kids are smart, but I don't know that like 4 or 5 year olds would follow what's going on here. Now they might not care, right? Because you're just kind of dazzled by the spectacle. But it did seem like it started to get a little too complex for its own good, at least in terms of its target audience. And then so you kind of add a lot of these things up. And I feel like Lightyear is a mid-tier Pixar movie. There were things that I definitely liked about it. There were things that I definitely was not crazy about. And so overall, it's like, well, I wouldn't chalk this up as just like a crappy Pixar movie, right? This is not a bad Pixar movie, but it's nowhere near the level of what I would consider like Inside Out. I think Inside Out is probably my favorite Pixar movie, and this doesn't even come close to addressing that. Partially, and this actually kind of relates, because one of the things I loved about Inside Out was just its mastery of themes and messages about human nature, and kind of its way of portraying in animated form and even character form the way that we view the world and respond to it, emotionally and all that kind of thing. Lightyear seems to have kind of conflicting messages where, and I don't know how much I want to get into them because I don't want to spoil a whole lot of the plot, but
that's fair.
But I think that, since one of the easiest ways to put it is that, because the people back on the planet kind of have to go about their business like they're going to be there for a while. One of the questions is, do we still want to escape and get back home, or do we want to just make this home? And that's an interesting idea, and that's a really interesting plot. What's weird about Lightyear is that it seems to both support and antagonize that same idea simultaneously. And not in a way that's like, oh, we're considering the pros and cons. It's like, no, it seems like at one scene you're saying one thing, and in another scene you're saying something totally different. And so that's why I say, like, there are just several different things where I'm kind of, raising an eyebrow thinking, well, I don't know about that, And now, from what I've heard from other people who are a lot more well-versed in Pixar than I am, is that there are also some questions about how this ties into the Toy Story movies, as far as, certain characters that are introduced that are portrayed a certain way. And that's the kind of stuff where I'm just kind of out of my league, because I just don't know. I know that I've seen the more recent Toy Story movies, and I've got to think that I've seen the first one or two at some point, but I just don't have that,
that knowledge readily available.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Dani, once you get a chance to see this, you might have very different, you might feel much more strongly because you have that, like, what are they doing? I can't believe they changed that. I don't know if it's that significant or if it's just kind of, insignificant. So that's, I think overall I would put Lightyear as kind of like this, 2.5 to 3 out of 4, where there's definitely some things that I like about it and some things that I think people will enjoy. My nieces enjoyed it, and that's, I was talking to a friend after the screening, and he said, well, that's what we care about is the, friend at Megaplex is we want to know how the kids feel.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's interesting. You said that about, like, the target audience too, because, like, my thought was that it's more of a movie targeting those who grew up with Toy Story, like, me, like.
And that's a very good point. That's an excellent point.
Yeah, because, like, when the teaser was first released, and there was no voice acting with it or anything, it was just I think it was a Beatles song, like, there's a star band, like, just like that nostalgia and like the spectacle, and I was just like, oh man, this looks amazing, right? And the more that's come out about it, the more I've felt like it might not be something I'd be really interested in, but I still have a lot of people who are around my age who are still super stoked about this movie. So I just feel like, in terms of, like, story and characters and other choices, it's more for my demographic. But if, kids are still entertained by it, maybe they were wanting it to be a kids' movie. So I've been a little unclear on who the target audience is supposed to be.
Well, and that's,
I don't know.
I think that's a very important question, because, even without being like a diehard Pixar fan, I've enjoyed lots of their movies, but I haven't, I don't think I've actually gone out and bought any of them, right? If that makes, if that delineates it at all. But, like, what is very, very clear with Pixar, and has been clear for their entire run, is that they distinguish themselves by being movies that will appeal to both younger and adult audiences.
True.
And in this case, that almost takes on kind of a new dimension, because the adult audience is now the former child audience that grew up with the movies that this spun off from.
Yes.
And if you, as a big Toy Story fan, are not interested in seeing Lightyear, that's a problem, right? That's an issue.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But, like, my taste, and maybe this will be more apparent with the next movie we're covering, where it's just like, I don't know if movies have gotten worse or have gotten pickier, or, like you've pointed out, where it's like, because I'm reviewing, I'm looking at things a little more critically. So it's just like, my relationship with movies right now is just weird. So it could also be that factor.
So your relationship status with movies on Facebook is it's complicated.
It is complicated.
Yeah. I understand that. I understand that fully. Now, to add another interesting fold. Now, we're recording this the Wednesday before the movie is released, and so this could completely change. But just for reference, since I can't memorize all of the stuff, I usually have IMDb open to the page of the movie we're discussing. And what surprised me is that as of Wednesday afternoon, the 15th, out of 825 ratings on IMDb, it's currently getting a 4.2 out of 10, which is not good, which is not a high rating. I think I can speculate on some of the reasons this might be happening. I mean, because like I said, I mean, there are, whether it's, fans who don't like the way that the characters are being interpreted, or, maybe there's a bunch of Tim Allen fans, because I still haven't found the reason why Chris Evans is voicing Buzz instead of Tim Allen. Now, I mean, one of the weirder theories I came up with was that Tim Allen voices the actual toy, and that the toy is not the character in the movie, and so but that's kind of seemed like a stretch. I don't know if
it could work. I think Chris Evans, it seemed like he did a good job.
Oh yeah, no, he did
so
fine. And I mean, you put his name on the movie, and he's gonna draw more business than Tim Allen right now. I mean, honestly, I mean, the movie has been part of some controversy, some political controversy about certain scenes being added and taken away, and I don't know. I just don't know if I'm ready to go into those weeds as far as the the politics of Disney releases is not really a subject that I ever really anticipated would ever be necessary.
No, it's true.
But it has been the subject of that. Like I said, it could be diehard fans. It could be people who just didn't like the movie. I mean, I had a hard time thinking that, this is just a bad movie. Like I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't rank it at the top of my Pixar list by any means. But like I said, I still kind of found it as like a mid-tier, like better than kind of the the sequels that are just kind of gone, there and forgotten. But nowhere near, what I would consider like the Inside Out level. So I don't know.
No, I think it's interesting though how you said it's not necessarily a bad movie, because I think it's just this movie came with such high expectations, and it's like, it's very nostalgia based, and it's politicized, so it's going to be very divisive no matter what. Like, it's just a risky kind of move. So I'm not surprised that it's all polarized, but
no, and I mean, maybe the best thing to do is just kind of revisit it in a couple of weeks and see.
Maybe.
Because like I said, I mean, it's Wednesday afternoon. It hasn't come out yet. We've got less than 1,000 ratings on IMDb, but a trend is emerging, and so we'll have to see what continues to emerge. So I guess stay tuned on that one, and we can move on to something that we have a little bit more concrete evidence for, as far as well, I guess we do and we don't, right? Because this is shaping up to be one of those movies that defines the tension that we have discussed in previous episodes. But now, so if you've been listening to the podcast, if you follow the website, both Dani and I have already posted written reviews for I don't know if we're ready to call it infamous Jurassic World Dominion. I'm gonna bring it up here on IMDb.
Yeah, sure thing.
And so, so if you have been following that at all, you probably already know that we are not crazy about Jurassic World Dominion. If you are part of the 80% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience, then maybe you did enjoy Jurassic World Dominion. Now, the IMDb rating for this one is 6.0 out of 10 with 36,000 reviews, so quite a bit larger base to draw from. But
and that feels like a fair score, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'd personally put it lower, but that's like my own personal reasons, right? Whereas this one's
No,
fine.
I'd follow that. Okay, so
Yeah.
since I broke down Lightyear, let's have you lead off with Dominion, so
Oh
that you
goodness,
can.
that.
Because I don't. I mean, I don't. We know. I mean, we like I said, the written reviews are posted.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to do a whole lot to set up the movie. Maybe
Yeah.
just briefly, but Danny,
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
let you
I
I'll let you
can.
take the lead here.
Yeah. No, I can briefly talk about it. I think the big thing with this movie is that it was just so forgettable. So I'm so afraid that like giving the premise, I'm gonna like miss some important detail. But basically, Dominion follows the events of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, where dinosaurs were released upon the world, and we kind of follow two main groups that converge later on. One group being our Jurassic World cast with Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and
And the clone
Isabella
girl.
Sermon, who plays Maisie the clone, and they're kind of like this little family unit, and they've got their own issues because a human clone is in high demand apparently, and they also have ties to Blue, who has a child, and little baby Dino, and their story kicks off when Blue's baby and Maisie are both kidnapped by the same company, Biosyn, and then on the other side of things, we have our Jurassic Park cast. So you've got Ellie Sadler, Alan Grant, Dr. Malcolm, who is still probably the best thing
I
in this
know.
movie and in this
Thank
franchise.
goodness he's there.
Thank goodness Jeff Goldblum is there. Um, and they kind of are studying their own controversy that's also tied to Biosyn. So basically, everyone comes up together to figure out and get to the bottom of everything that's going on in this shady business. Because capitalism bad? I don't know. So that's the whole premise, basically. And yeah, no, it was very bad. And I think we talked about this at the start of the year, where this was a movie we were both looking forward to, but like, with morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
the way things left off with Jurassic World, it's just like, how do you have this world of dinosaurs? And I'll be honest, like the first couple minutes of Dominion, I was like, okay, we got some cowboy Chris Pratt like rounding up dinosaurs. I'm like, you know what? If that's what we're doing, and we're really exploring what a world with dinosaurs is like, with like dinosaurs and humans together, like that's what I came to the movie to see, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to see how that played out, and we totally abandoned that, except for the very beginning
Right.
and the very end, which was so disappointing. And then I realized, like, apparently there was more stuff that happened with them during like the whole famous motorcycle chase, Chris Pratt and the Velociraptor adjacent dinosaurs, where I guess there were more dinosaurs there than I noticed. I was so forgettable. I was like, oh, they had those. Whatever, it's fine. So I don't know. It was just so disappointing in that way. It was disappointing with the action. Like a lot of people said, oh, that was like my favorite sequence, and I'm like, why? It was like shaky cam, CGI that's gonna age badly. Like I didn't care. There weren't real stakes. I didn't feel like it didn't feel tense, and that
Right.
was a huge thing because like you think about Jurassic Park, like the terror, the fear, because these are dinosaurs and you're just pathetic little humans. Like that's a big deal, and when it's just like oh, there's a dinosaur encounter that lasts like 30 seconds, and
Well, you
there,
can't
there's a
you can't
yeah,
have stakes when you know that nothing is going to happen to any of the main characters.
true,
Because that first Jurassic Park movie, which is just head and shoulders above any of these other ones, you
yeah,
had, and granted, I mean, they're not like the main characters, but you had Dennis Nedry gets killed in the Jeep, and you had the lawyer gets eaten when he's sitting, he's in the outhouse, and then the Crocodile Dundee slash Crocodile Hunter guy, he gets killed, and even didn't
Samuel
Samuel
Jackson
Jackson,
does,
yeah,
yeah,
and so the core difference between that movie and this one is that by the end, I guess this is a spoiler, but maybe it's just too late. Like they have
But
this
basically,
scene,
no one dies.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
they're making it obvious that everybody has to make it. And when everybody is like a dozen characters, it's absurd because they're trying to, you know, I get it that let's bring back Laura Dern and Sam Neill and of course, you know, Jeff Goldblum. That's 3 people.
Yeah.
With the Jurassic World series, okay, we got Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, and okay, the clone girl, right? Can't kill the clone girl. That's 6. If they got them out, that's pushing it, but that's not all they try to do. They just, you know, because it just drove me crazy how many characters they just tried to shoehorn in and keep involved in this movie. And
Well, think about all the side characters too, because the same thing
That's what I
happened
mean.
with like all the side characters from Jurassic World came in, side characters from the first. Okay, and I didn't realize this, and again, I feel bad. I'm glad I've watched other reviews because they've kind of like enlightened me a little bit. Doesn't make the movie any better, but at least I understand it better now. But
now
like,
I understand more clearly why I hate this.
exactly. No, but the bad guy is Dodson, who was the guy from the first movie who hired Dennis Nedry.
Oh, really?
It's the same character. But
Okay.
I didn't
He just started.
realize
He
that.
just started dressing like Steve Jobs in between.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love how
Biosyn.
you pointed that out.
Evil.
I
It's
love
like
how you
this
pointed
arbitrary-
that in your review.
Like
we
let's
both-
have
we
an
get
original
that, yeah.
idea. Let's have a big corporation, and they'll be evil, and they'll be the bad guy because they're a big corporation.
Exactly.
I don't know what their motivation is, but they're bad guys.
Oh.
And then,
Yeah, no.
when they'll have like the CEO who's like some kind of Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's not threatening at all.
No.
And no, it was.
Yeah. That
Well-
was a bad choice. That was probably one of the worst bad choices of this movie. Just, oh, no, the whole villain, every time he did something kind of quirky, like, he's a little weird. But, like, there was no reason for it. He was just weird because he's weird, creepy, nerdy, rich guy. And
Yeah.
it's I love...
He's just interchangeable.
Yeah, exactly. Something that I said was like, he's this villain, as previously seen on Don't Look Up. And if you've seen Don't Look Up, like, you know, the tech kind of antagonist dude, he's hilarious because he's supposed to be kind of, you know, he's making fun of this trope, right? He's just so absurd, but you spend enough time with his character where you understand him a little better. Whereas this one, it's just like, they try to copy that character, which was already supposed to be kind of satirical. And here it's just weird. And again, it's like, it's not scary. Like, Dennis Nedry, like, he was also kind of goofy, but, like, there were a lot of layers to him. He was very interesting, and, like,
Well, and he was motivated too because
And
they
he was
were
motivated,
shortening
yeah.
it, right? They weren't paying him enough.
Yeah.
That was kind of the
what did
joke, right?
you-
Is that we spared no expense except for
Yeah,
this
exactly.
computer guy who's gonna betray us all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think of Biosyn's motivations? And I feel like that might not be too much of a spoiler with the Locust.
Probably not because
Okay.
even after seeing the movie, I can't remember what their motivations were.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
there's
but that-
so there are these grossly oversized locusts that in a swarm are destroying. You know, they're just like rampaging through the Midwest, and that's how Alan Grant and Ellie, you know, get back involved because they're
Yeah.
researching that
Yep.
because Biosyn is behind the locust swarm, and I think that I can't remember why they made the locusts. Like, why do they make the mutant locusts?
I don't remember.
I don't
That
remember. and
was
I don't
that was
care.
a thing too.
It doesn't
Like,
matter.
Yeah, in a franchise where, you know, the science fiction and the philosophy and you know, emphasis on the science part,
I mean,
especially
were they trying
like
to
that,
destroy all their competitors? Because I remember that like the fields that had the biosyn chemicals were safe. So maybe this was just like some nasty way to try to destroy all the competitors. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, 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 no. I think that's what it is, but like they don't say that, and they're like, oh, they're multiplying too much. Like where it was like it seemed like that wasn't their intention, but it was like a byproduct. But then it's like, then what was your intention? Like, why on earth do we need locusts like this? Like it was just so weird. And
The
what I was gonna say
the
is just like,
motivation is
yeah.
how do we get Sam Neill and Laura Dern back into this story?
Exactly, exactly. We
No,
couldn't
because
have
I
a
mean,
sick
yeah,
triceratops again.
right. No, but and I guess what's hard is that if a movie is just bad, it's just bad. But
Yeah,
it's worse when it gives you reasons to think that it could have been so much better. And that first
yeah,
couple minutes, like you described, I mean the way I put it in my written review was it was kind of like the world had just turned into a giant Yellowstone National Park where like if you've been to national parks, especially a place like Yellowstone, you're driving around just kind of like doing your everyday thing, and then there's a buffalo walking across the road,
yeah.
right? Or there's bison, or not bears too much anymore. I mean, you don't see nearly as many of those as you'd like to, but you are coexisting with the animal kingdom in or you go up to like to Mammoth Hot Springs where the park headquarters is, and there are just these huge elk just relaxing on the grass in front of the headquarters building. And so there's that kind of symbiotic, they're all just kind of there. And that's kind of what I felt like I was seeing at the beginning of Dominion was, okay,
Yeah.
well, it's everyday life, but if you come out of a tunnel and suddenly see a stegosaurus crossing the road, that's just one of your new realities.
Yeah.
But instead of explore that, we boil it down to, okay, all the dinosaurs are here in one place, all the characters are here in one place. This is where all the action is. It's all concentrated. It's just a rehash of the same formula again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's disappointing. It's incoherent. I
Yeah.
mean, I just trying to juggle so many different pieces and trying, and then trying to layer in the nostalgia on top of that and try to have these moments that are supposed to be heartwarming, harkening back to the whole will they won't they romantic theme between the original characters. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, just very 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 disappointing. But I think, so rather than continue to rant, as I'm sure we very easily can, I think what we need to discuss though is that this movie is also becoming a really classic example of the dissonance that we've discussed in previous episodes, where there's a pretty consistent universal critic response, and it's very very different from the audience response. Last I checked, 30% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 80% approval from audiences.
Crazy.
So why are audiences wrong?
I know that is how it feels, right? And it's so hard
Like,
because
did you
I
watch the
feel
same
like
movie?
I know, and I feel bad because I mean, at least when I started doing all this Utah.film stuff, I felt like, oh, I'm coming from the audience perspective, and I like making a case for all movies, and I don't think this movie was bad in the same way like Doctor Strange or Turning Red were, where it's like, this is a bad movie, don't see it, no reason. Where it's like, I'm telling people, I'm like, go see it and like get your own opinion. It's entertaining, Like even like if you find issues with it, like I'm a big Jurassic Park fan, so I have a lot of issues with this movie. But it's like, but it was still fun, and like even disliking it was its own bit of fun. So like I think there's that element to it where it's people are still having an enjoyable time, which may up the rating a little bit. I do think there are some issues with it, which is what critics are pointing out. I wonder too, because it got such a low rating before the movie came out, right? From critics. It started out pretty low there, so I wonder if people came in, expecting just this garbage movie
Yeah,
and then coming away from it like, oh no, that was actually really fun, because it's
yeah.
fun.
It's watchable, right? And I don't
Yeah,
mean that as a
yeah,
backhanded compliment. I mean, like,
yeah.
there is nothing that would feel tedious or exhausting about just going and I mean I really hate the turn off your brain excuse, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when somebody's trying to justify a bad or a subpar movie,
Yeah.
oh, it's just a turn off your brain. No, no, no. That's just trying to make excuses for the fact that the people who made this movie didn't put in the time to write a decent story or to make things make sense.
Yeah.
It's, you know, because technically speaking, you know, the and I always look to the Transformers movies as the classic example of this, right? Because if you have a sequence of explosions and attractive people and fights and different things on the screen, those elements are entertaining, right? So if you're just watching a
Yeah.
highlight reel of crazy visuals, sure, that's entertaining. It doesn't mean it's
Mm-hmm.
good. And that's to how I kind of see Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Dominion is like there are individual elements that are all entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't add up to anything. And if you take any time to think about what is or is not happening, it just falls apart. And I guess that's the difference is that critics are obligated to pay attention and look for those kind of things so that we can differentiate between a really good movie versus an okay movie versus something that you should avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I honestly just think that for a lot of people, a movie is just a movie, and it the threshold is a lot lower because and I don't know I one of the things that I continue to keep in mind, and I don't know if this is just not as important to some audiences, is that if you are being asked to pay money to see this, there's an
Mm-hmm.
obligation, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I have an obligation if I'm going to tell somebody to go see a movie. Okay, I'm telling you to go spend $10-15 of your own money if you're just going by yourself, let alone if you're bringing a date, if you're bringing the kids, right?
Yeah.
And once you kind of look at it in those terms, there's no way that I am going to endorse something like Dominion the way that I would support Maverick. Like I
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue whatsoever with telling audiences go spend your money to see Maverick in the theater. It is that
Yeah.
good. That is a worthwhile investment. At best I could say Jurassic World, it'll entertain you. You'll completely forget about it in a week.
Yep.
So I wouldn't spend more than $5 on it. It's a
Yeah.
$5 Tuesday movie, and if you spend any time thinking about it at all, it just make you angry,
It's,
so angry.
and I wonder with that, like, I think it's funny you bring up Maverick because you and I both brought up Maverick in our written reviews.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of it is the fact that those were released so close to each other and they're just so different in terms of quality,
Well,
where it's just night and day, really.
and
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 I
I
and I think it's hard not to compare.
well, for me, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but
Yeah.
the reason that I felt like the comparison was needed,
Mm-hmm.
because you look at it on the surface, and it's like, okay, well, you got a sci-fi movie about dinosaurs versus an action adventure about
True.
you would think apples and oranges.
Yeah.
But what makes this comparison necessary for me is that the context of each movie is so similar because you have a sequel of sorts to a
Mm-hmm.
very very beloved and very very old franchise, right? Because the Jurassic Park 1993 and Top Gun was what 1986. And
Mm-hmm.
so both of these new movies in 2022 have an obligation to be true to those roots, right? And so you've got this, okay, well, what do we need to do for the fans? What do we need to do in terms of nostalgia and callbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and where Maverick was just so good at blending the nostalgia in an effective way and backing it up with a movie that would be excellent and without the nostalgic connections. Jurassic World Dominion just kind of seems to slap in some random attempts to be nostalgic and fond. Because honestly, I mean, if it makes any difference, I consider myself more of a fan of Jurassic Park than I do of Top Gun.
Oh,
And so it's not just that,
easily.
oh, I'm not into Jurassic Park and so I don't care about the nostalgia. No, I mean, I think the nostalgia could be a lot more effective for Jurassic Park if it was done well, but it wasn't. It was so forced and shoehorned in, and then the movie itself, where Top Gun was easy to follow and understand and was executed, the special effects were seamless. Jurassic Park just, or I keep calling it Jurassic World Dominion, right? Just everything that Maverick did right, Dominion dropped the ball. And and because they kind of have those similar contextual identities, there's no way that you have to line them up against each other, because you have such a great example and such a poor flop next to it.
No, for sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, people do like it. I just I don't know why. Have you heard why? Because, like, actually, I was on Facebook, and one of my friends asked, she's like, I'm thinking about seeing Dominion. What? But it's, kind of divided. What do you guys think? And a lot of people, it was still very divided in the comments. Like, some people were like, it was silly but fun, or like, the special effects were really cool, which I don't agree with, but, it's okay. And for me, I kind of chalked up with, like, here's my rant, but I think it's worth it to see it, to know what it's about, and to have that experience, right? So I guess maybe that kind of sums up the conversation about it, but have you been seeing other reasons why people are liking this movie?
I haven't heard a whole lot of praise for it.
Yeah.
One of my guesses, and it's called an educated guess, but I'm not just taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
But I think that it kind of, similar to what I was saying before, where a lot of times I think that the audience is only looking for an immediate experience, right? Is this good enough to justify right now? Is this entertaining me right now? Am I having a good time? Do I feel like I've enjoyed my couple of hours right this moment, right? And in order to not reach that threshold, it probably has to be really bad, right? Like a really, really bad movie will get a reaction, but if it's fine, it's fine. And so I don't necessarily think that the audience is always going in thinking, okay, well, how is this going to compare next to the other 5 Jurassic movies? Where's it going to rank? Because my gut feeling, and this, maybe this is just me just clinging to hope, but I still feel like, okay, well, let's go 10 years down the road, right? Ask the same person who thinks this is a perfectly good movie, do you have any interest in seeing that again? Have you seen it more than once? Where would you rank it next to the original Jurassic Park? Because I think that basically that difference between the 30% and 80% is really going to kind of level off. And maybe the difference is that where the audience is looking at things in a very immediate present sense, to be critics, we are kind of obligated to look at things for more of a wide perspective in order to give the full context of whether this movie is working or not. And so as a result, we're just paying attention to things that the general audience isn't. And
that's fair.
But then the paradox is that we still are supposed to be giving the audience help and insight and information.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and I think the information we're given is, like, go see it in theaters, right? Because the sound's fun, the lighting's fun, those things are good. So it's like, go see it in theaters. Maybe don't pay full price, like go on a discount night, but, like, you might as well see it. Because I think there's a lot of curiosity anyways, because like this is such a beloved franchise. Like we want to know what happens next, and so now we know, and that's okay. When I do my Jurassic Park marathons, I'm not going to watch this one, because it's not going to give me that same feeling that the others do, right?
Sure, sure.
And it's funny. This is totally a tangent, but we recently did an Indiana Jones marathon, and we included Crystal Skull in that. And I
Sorry.
actually like Crystal Skull. Okay. Um,
There's that
and
okay
it might
again.
be
It's
pretty
okay.
good. It's pretty
It's
good.
pretty okay.
Um, I mean, sure, it's definitely not like the other ones, definitely, but like there are a lot of moments that when I was watching them back to back, it still felt like it was an Indiana Jones movie, even though like the time was different. Of course, Harrison Ford is older. Of course, CG is always going to look bad after a couple years, which is another concern I have about Dominion. Um, but like there were still a lot of beats and a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, this is totally like an Indiana Jones movie. Whereas this one, I don't feel like it ever had any of those moments, which is why I wouldn't want to watch it when I'm doing a marathon. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to own this movie.
No, as you are describing that, I think I would agree in that I never felt the same sense of wonder
Yeah.
that, and granted, I mean that's kind of Spielberg's signature thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even like the looks on his characters' faces, the look of wonder, like that's his thing. And
Mm-hmm.
Jurassic Park was full of that. I don't think that this new movie ever, even if the things were kind of exciting and entertaining visually, it never made me feel that way. And
Yeah.
I think you pointed this out first in your review. This was not a scary movie. It was not.
No,
There was no tension. It was
never.
not. You weren't afraid.
It
There was
wasn't even
just this
that
sequence.
violent.
Yeah,
Yeah. There was like one sequence I can think of where like someone's arms are being like, eaten.
yeah.
But it's like, that was the only like graphic kind of part and it didn't
Hmm.
feel super violent.
No,
So,
it was definitely pared down, and I
yeah.
don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if because there's such a wide range in PG-13, right? I mean,
True.
you could subdivide PG-13 movies a half dozen times and still have pretty distinctive categories. But no,
Yeah.
and I mean, because now you brought up Crystal Skull, and I'm thinking about Crystal Skull, and I
I'm
think,
sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I think my core disappointment with that movie was that the things that I thought were a problem didn't have to be a problem because I went into
Mm,
it thinking, well, I hope that Harrison Ford doesn't just look really ridiculous doing this stuff as an old man, or that they decide to just make it a big joke that he's an older guy and that just comes off as a clumsy. And they handled that fine. The
hmm
thing that I hated about Crystal Skull was just the storytelling and the dialogue and the character. It's like you didn't have to screw that up. What happened? And
You
so
just have to write a good movie at that point. And that's the hard
yeah,
thing with sequels, right? Like, you have to make a good movie, just
right,
generally. But then you also have to have that element where it connects well. So, and
yeah.
that's the hard part.
Hmm.
That's what we're saying with Maverick, with this, with
No, in
Dominion,
fact, one of my reactions to Maverick was that Maverick felt to me like a tribute to 80s action movies in the same
Yeah.
way that Raiders of the Lost Ark was intended to be a tribute to the old action adventure serials of the
Mm,
30s and the 40s.
yeah.
And maybe I should just that's all. That's my closing statement. And that's all I have to say about that. And we probably better start to wrap up, otherwise this is not going to be a shorter version for our.
No.
What's I'll let you. What do you think? Any final parting thoughts on Jurassic, on the Dominion? It's not going to
Yeah.
be part of your marathon. You've officially said that.
Yeah. But go see it. I think there's no harm in seeing it. So, it's
Well,
fun.
yeah. I mean, there's no harm. necessary.
It's pretty okay.
It's pretty okay. He says it's pretty okay, and that's all you need. That's all you need. Well, Dani, thank you for giving me the chance to rant a little bit more on Dominion.
It felt good.
And,
that felt good.
And Lightyear for you guys is pretty okay. Also, we'll see how. So far, I think Maverick is still the leader. It's still
100%.
unchallenged, but we'll see how things happen in the next few weeks, few months. We got Bullet Train, we got Love and Thunder, we got other stuff, and we'll look forward to talking about those movies. So thanks as always. Leave us comments, follow us, listen to us, pray for us. Honestly, I think we can, every little thing helps. So have a good one. We'll talk to you next, or we'll thank you for being our audience. Until next time, this has been the Utah Film Pod with Dani Hatch and a stumbling Josh Terry.